Today's webcast, The Evolution of Usage Statistics, sponsored by Swets and Library Journal. This is Michael Christopher, Sales Engineer at Swets, and I'll be moderator for today's webinar. Before we go any further, I have a few housekeeping items to run through. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please use the red Q&A button on the audience console on the webcast technical team. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. If your screen becomes locked due to local network congestion, try using F5 to refresh the webcast console. If you're on a Mac, please use Command R. The slide presentation is available for download in the green resource folder in the bottom menu dock, and the certificate for continuing education credit is also available in the resource folder and is labeled certificate. If you have any questions or comments, send those in at any time via the red Q&A box. Additionally, please feel free to join the conversation on Twitter. Tweet us at Library Journal with the hashtag LJSwets. Now I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Charlie Siciliano. And Charlie is the head of technical services at the University of West Georgia Ingram Library. Charlie began his tenure at the University of West Georgia in 2009 as electronic resource librarian and quickly advanced to his current role as head of technical services in 2010. Here, his responsibilities included supervising the technical services staff, coordinating library services, and directing statistical analysis. Charlie earned his bachelor's at the University of Tennessee and a master's from Florida University State. He is currently working on a second master's in history from the University of West Georgia.
Hello. My name is Charlie Siciliano, and I'm with the University of West Georgia. Thank you, Michael, for that introduction. What I wanted to do really quickly was give you a brief introduction to West Georgia and then give you an idea of what we're doing with some of this usage data that we are collecting. West Georgia is, we have about 11,000 to 12,000 students. Roughly 10,500 of those students are full-time. We're part of the University System of Georgia, and we have about 31 universities and colleges statewide. We are a member of both state and regional consortium networks. The biggest one, obviously, is Lyrasis because they're right down the road from us. But we also work very closely with Galileo. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Galileo, they're the academic arm of the Digital Library of Georgia. And one other interesting thing about UWG is that we're actually currently going through the final phases of our SACS accreditation. And actually one thing that I forgot to put on this slide is that we are also an institution that has a semester-long 2-hour class. And so we teach, we try to reach out to freshmen and sophomores and show them the basics of academic research and information literacy. So going to the next slide, this kind of gives an overview of some of the things that the freshmen and sophomores are dealing with when they come to West Georgia. We currently have about 400 databases or so. 200 of those are going to come straight out of my budget. The rest of those databases are provided by Galileo, and we work very closely with all of our consortium networks to try to spend the money as best as we can. And provide resources that are easy to use and informative. One of the things that we have noticed over the past few years, especially since we've been doing a lot of data crunching with a lot of these usage stats, are a lot of people come to West Georgia from, a lot of them come from in-state or from the region, and it seems like no matter where they come from, they're very easily overwhelmed by all of the options that we have as far as database research, how to properly cite things. They have a hard time figuring out how to get some of these things to operate. So we've been using a lot of usage data to help with our classroom instruction as well as when it's time to make decisions about our collection. So let me go to the next slide here. Since SACS is coming up, that has really forced us to try to figure out how best to prove our worth to the institution. So, the role of a technical services person these days is really you're dealing with the electronic resources person, which is actually me. In some institutions, you have separate people. For me, I'm also the electronic resources librarian. We're very involved in budgeting. We have to make a lot of financial decisions. And on top of that, I'm managing 2 faculty members and 4 staff people. So a really big part of my job is communicating with Galileo. And sometimes, there are peaks and valleys when it comes to dealing with Galileo or any sort of consortia network. Sometimes there's a flurry of activity about money and usage statistics, and then you don't have that conversation with Galileo for several months. But one thing that we noticed when it comes to the research class, the usage stats that we get can tell us a lot about our collection and our teaching methods. We don't like to make a lot of rash decisions when it comes to cutting. Obviously, cutting is painful. Sometimes we realize that we have good resources. We just need to incorporate them into the curriculum of the Research 1101 class. But then if we start to notice that there's no real movement on any of these usage stats, then a database would be, a candidate for cuts, should we have to go down that road. The SACS thing, it really made us come to realization that we had to do a lot of things differently. Metrics are very important, especially when you have an accreditation agency who are on your campus and you're submitting documents to them. So we have to prove our financial worth to the institution. So we redid our collection development policies, and we started to do a lot more analysis of what we were getting, how we were spending our money. And we have to also show that, we're thinking ahead about what research and information literacy is going to be, 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And when you're having these meetings with senior administrators or the vice president of academic affairs, obviously you want to be able to give them data. As far as they're concerned, we could have some of the best resources in the world, but if no one's using it, then it's a candidate for cutting. So, it gives us a good idea of how we're serving the campus. It gives us a good idea of how we're serving the faculty, and it also gives us a good idea of whether we're really spending money wisely. We obviously want to be good stewards of the money that we get from the state, because if you show them that you can live without it, they may not give it to you next year. When it comes to wrapping up our SACS, we have to prove the spending habits, and we have to show that we're alert to what our students need. We're already in the process of using ACRL and NCES. Our library director has been very aggressive about making sure that we participate with these agencies, because we want our information to be out there, and we want to be able to compare how we're doing compared to everybody else. We also have several offices on campus that also require us to give them, they want to know how we're spending the money. They want to do, obviously they need that for auditing purposes, but there's also, campus fact book, marketing information. Everybody on campus benefits from this usage information. It's a very easy way for them to put together some marketing material for students. It can be really important to show off your collection when you're recruiting faculty as well. If it looks like faculty and incoming graduate students aren't really going to have the opportunity to use the materials that they need in order to do that upper level of research, getting people to come here, whether it's a graduate student or a faculty member, it's going to be a much tougher sell. And one of the things that usage stats have to be are easily accessible. It has to be in a format that allows you to manipulate the data, because you never really know what people are going to ask you. And actually, this is something that happened to me yesterday. I had no idea that the Art Accreditation Institute was going to actually be on campus. So yesterday they were asking for additional data, and I was able to get it to them quickly because we've been doing a good job of archiving all of this usage data. So they wanted to know what databases we had, how often they were being used, how many times people were getting to full-text resources when they tried to get to those full-text resources. So it gave us a whole level of metric granularity that we could give to the accreditation people, so they know that the art department is doing their job in getting people to do research at the 4-year academic level. So anyway, being able to filter the information, one thing that I've noticed since we've been consolidating all of this usage data is that, people talk about this 80-20 rule. 80% of our 80% of the usage is really going to come from 20% of the resources that we have. The other 20% is going to be spread out across the 80% of resources that aren't used as much, but you have to make sure that you don't want to make too many rash decisions on that level either, because that doesn't necessarily mean that the material is bad. It might make you reassess how you're marketing some of this information to the students, and it might make us reassess how we introduce some of these research materials, especially when it's, we're doing outreach to the freshmen and the sophomores who, go into this research class, so we can kind of get them off on the right foot. It's never easy to properly consolidate all of this information, and that's kind of the hard part, and that's one reason why we actually use SWET's scholarly support to do our usage. And you have to get away from the spreadsheets. Up until about a year ago, whenever we were doing usage analysis, I probably had about 50 spreadsheets. I had one for every vendor. I had all kinds of crazy formulas across spreadsheets, and that became really, really harder to manage. The next bullet point that I have on the slide in front of you, you have to be in a position to get updated analytics at a moment's notice. Well, yesterday was the big case in point. We had no idea that they were unhappy with some of the information that we submitted to them 6 months ago. But because we had all of our stuff in one place and we'd been building this data archive about our usage over the past few years, we were able to get them the information that they needed. And we were able to download and manipulate things in Excel so they could get the information that they needed. In closing, you have to be able to discuss these possible cuts in a very realistic way and justify your decisions with data. Like I said earlier, they don't really care if it's a great resource. If no one's using it, then they're going to want you to cut it. You have to be realistic. So that allows us to have very clear metrics about what's being used and what's not being used. And unfortunately, the current state of education budgets and industry inflation, you just know that conversation is going to come up. I probably don't need to tell people out there, but the annual inflation rate for the databases run, maybe 5 to 6%. They don't get any cheaper, I can tell you that. But 5 to 6% is what you can expect for a database. When it comes to the journals, they really have more of a 10% inflation rate. So you're kind of in this position where every 4 or 5 years, you really have to evaluate what's a candidate for cuts, because unless you're really, really, really good at procuring money, then eventually you're going to have a decision to make when it comes to cutting things for the budget. Now that SACS is sort of in the last throes, I think our site visit is going to be this coming spring semester. We're using a lot of big round numbers to kind of prove our case. But now, since we've been archiving this usage data, we'll be able to make a lot more informed decisions on other metrics and analytics regarding our budget and our collection on more of an institution-specific level. And so it's been, in closing, it's always tedious, but having something like SWETS allows us to really make use of those numbers without breaking our backs. And so now that we have that data, we can really start making some very specific decisions about how we need to move forward and how we're best going to serve the campus community as these things change going forward. And that's actually my last slide. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael, and he will introduce the rest of the panelists. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Actually, just as a quick reminder to all attendees, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to send them in via the red Q&A box. And what I'd like to do next is make an introduction for our next presenter. So now to hear from Chan Lee. She's a library data analyst at California Digital Library. Chan Lee received her MLIS in 2006 from the University of California, Los Angeles. She's a senior data analyst at the California Digital Library, where she manages all aspects of electronic resource analysis activities. In recent years, Chan has been a key player in the development of CDL's weighted value algorithm to assess the significance of UC system-wide electronic journal acts across disciplines. The algorithm moves away from more traditional methods of measuring values such as cost and usage, often comparing the results across all disciplines collectively. In this new model, multiple perspectives are all considered within each discipline separately. Chan serves on NISO Sushi Standing Committee.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Today, I would like to focus on California Digital Library developed journal value algorithm, which evolves from usage data, but also moves away from more traditional methods of measuring values such as just usage or citations, and often comparing the results across all disciplines collectively. And I will also reflect on some issues related to usage data. But more importantly, my intention today is to stimulate some thought and perhaps actions in some new directions. And my question to the community is how can we better understand usage and other metrics that can help us not only to inform our collection development decisions, but also help us to show the impact that libraries provide to users from the licensed collections. So let's take this piece by piece. The more traditional methods of measuring journal values are usually focusing on usage data and impact factors, and I think they're still very key and important metrics. Let's talk about usage data first. One early pioneer study by Richard Truswell in the 1960s in studying library collection usage, and I assume it's the print usage, identified 80-20 rule, and Charlie just mentioned that too. It implies that 80% of the usage can be covered by 20% of the collection, and this has been a standard assumption among libraries for many years, and amazingly it still holds true when it comes to the e-journals. And the chart here shows the 2012 University of California journal counter statistics for all the journals that we license across the whole UC system. As you can see, it's the same 80-20 rule. The long tail has 80% of the title with only 20% of the usage. And the long tail phenomenon is not just for library collections. Like Amazon is another example where a big portion of their online book revenue comes from those low-hit items. And they call this business model is selling less of more. The individual sales are low for the long tail, but the mass is huge. So the long tail presents lots of business opportunities to the publishers and vendors. And at the same time, there are lots of values in the long tail for library users too. It provides the broader access to journal content from all kinds of subjects, especially the niche disciplines. For example, none of the arts and humanity titles that we license at UC are in the head of this chart. They're all in the long tail. So when we analyze the journal usage, we really need to look at it by subject. Impact factor is another metric that libraries and researchers value a lot. And this chart shows how UC usage data correlates to impact factor for the journals in 4 subject categories I used as examples. The x-axis is the 2012 UC usage data, and the y-axis here is the 2012 impact factor. And each dot on the chart represents an individual journal. So the orange dots group, they are economic titles. The green dots are mathematics titles. The red ones are psychology. And the blue ones are dermatology titles. So as you can see, not only usage behaves differently from subject to subject, citation behavior is also different across subjects. And before putting all of this thing into one chart, it might be very hard to think that psychology titles, they actually have much higher usage than mathematics titles. And it also hard to imagine that mathematics titles and economic titles, they somehow behave similarly by usage and by citation. So we definitely need a subject-based approach, not just for usage metric, but also for citation metric. And another observation from this chart is that some highly cited journals, which should be in the upper portion of the chart, are not necessarily highly used ones from their disciplines. And some lowly cited journals, they get a lot of uses at the same time. So there could be many reasons to explain this, but in general, I think those two different kind of metrics provide different perspectives to journal values. So it's better to look them together. So those major findings and observations are the major basis of our weighted value journal metric that is developed at CDL. Here are a few highlights. The scope of the analysis that we did covered 7,600 journals across more than 30 journal publishers. And we divide journals into 164 subject categories. Multiple perspectives are included into the analysis: utility, quality, and cost effectiveness. And I will talk about the specific metrics we used in a minute. And it is a comparative approach. Median values are primarily the benchmark values, so that titles are compared with each other in their own subject areas. So the results are relative, they're not absolute values. So here's what specific metrics we included. For utility perspective, you focus just on the left part of this chart. For utility perspective, we include usage and citations. Usage is the title level metric. It is number of full text downloads per title by UC users. And citation is also a title level metric. It measures number of articles cited by UC authors. And for quality perspective, we include impact factor and another one called source normalized impact per paper. And impact factor is an article level metric. It measures the average number of citation in a given year to articles published in science and social science journals during the 2 preceding years. And SNEEP is another article level quality metric. It's defined as the ratio of the citation impact per paper and the citation potential in its subject field. It was developed at Leiden University, and it is freely available at Elsevier's website now. The major reason that we included 2 quality metrics is that impact factor is well known, but SNEEP allows direct comparison of sources in different subject fields, and the title coverage for SNEEP is much broader than impact factor, especially in the social science and arts humanity fields, and it actually correlates highly with impact factor. And for cost efficiency, we have cost per use and cost per SNEEP. So we have a mix of different kinds of metrics here. Some are local metrics like usage data, and some are global metrics like impact factor. And some metrics are at journal level. For example, usage, it takes into account the journal size. And some are article level metric like impact factor, which measures the average value of articles. So we combine all different kinds of metrics together, but the weight is not equally assigned to all the metrics. Usage is given the twice weight compared to the other metrics, which is shown on the pie chart on the upper right corner. This is really a subjective decision, and we weighted this more heavily due to the input that we got from campus librarians. So after all the calculations, each title will be assigned with a single score, which will also be mapped into one of the 4 value categories: high, medium, low, or lowest. Here is what it looks like for a group of mathematics titles. So each bar here represents an individual journal. The y-axis is the score. So first 2 titles on the left, they are both assigned with high values with different scores, and the second 2 are in the median value categories with different scores. The third 2 are in the low value categories, and the bottom 2 are in the lowest value categories. The dark and light blue bars represent usage and citation score components. The dark and the light pink are quality scores, and the dark and the light green bars are the cost efficiency components. So as you can see, the titles with the same value category can perform very differently from different areas. For example, the 2 median value titles, the first median value titles is probably used less but cited a lot. But the second median titles, they used a lot but didn't receive so many citations. So by assigning the value at individual title level, we can compare the title across packages and across disciplines, and we can even compare the titles with the same value category and identify the strengths and weakness of individual title. So in the next few slides, I will continue to show some sample analysis we extracted from weighted value algorithm. So this is the publisher ranking chart. So this publisher ranking are based on the overall score. The score assigned to each publisher is the average score per title from that publisher. So the ranking represents average title value. It does not take into account the size of the package, but it can give us an idea about the publisher overall ranking. And we can also compare publishers just for one specific subject. The stack chart example here are psychology titles, which are divided into 4 categories, high, medium, low, and lowest. So different color represent different publishers. As you can see, publisher H, which is highlighted in dark red, is pretty strong in psychology areas. It's published a lot in high-value titles. And on the other hand, publisher A, which is the highlighted in green, has relatively low performance in the psychology area with lots of lower value title published. So this kind of analysis can help us to understand and compare the quality of publishers' output in one specific subject area. And we can also look at individual publishers' value distribution. For example, we can do some pie charts like this one. The publisher A on the left, 81% of the titles are in the high value categories, which means that publisher A is relatively high value package. On the other hand, publisher B only have 9% of the titles in the high value category. So in the process of all the calculations, we have 3 cost-related metrics: cost per use, cost per SNP, and cost per title. And the median values of those 3 cost-related metrics can be used as the benchmark values to calculate value-based pricing. For example, psychology title A, it has 100 uses, and the median cost per use for all the psychology titles is probably $3. So the cost per use based pricing for journal A is $300. So you can compare this $300 to what you actually paid for this journal. And you can do the similar calculations for cost per SNP based pricing, or simply just compare what you pay for this journal with the average of what you pay for the other psychology titles. So now I want to focus on the issues around usage data and some future development in this area. One big question that we keep asking ourselves is that, can we trust the usage data we get from publishers, even the counter-compliant ones? I will talk about 2 issues here. One is that usage can be inflated, and the other is that usage can be deflated too. First, inflation issue. The question that we have is that when we evaluate journal usage, should we count only PDF uses or only HTML uses, or should we count both? And for some cases, HTML full text articles can be unintentionally downloaded by users. So, for example, if you do a topic search on Google Scholar, you find an article which the title seems very relevant to a topic, and then you click on that article. The link, instead of taking you to the abstract, it can take you directly to the HTML full text article. However, if you find an article not relevant, you move away, but that use is already counted as one full text use. But it could be an intentional use. And also, if you find an article interesting, you might click on the PDF right away for printing or for better reading. So 2 uses for the same articles are counted. So is that a double counting? And sometimes even for the same article, the landing page might be different depending on where the users come from. The landing page could be HTML full text if you come from Google or publisher website, but it could be abstract if you come from library catalog. So the pattern varies a lot from publisher to publishers. So it's very hard to statistically adjust it. And right now, we're using the total, which combines the PDF and HTML uses in our current algorithm. Here's some evidence that I think that could show that HTML uses might be inflated. The top chart is the correlation between PDF uses and 5-year citations. And the bottom chart is the correlation between HTML uses only and 5-year citations. And it shows that citations are more aligned with PDF uses rather than with HTML uses. Another question that is that what do users usually do with the HTML articles? Do they always download the PDF and print it if they find articles interesting? Or does this kind of behavior vary by subject too? Or so is there a double counting issue here? The counter statistics now cannot really help us to answer these questions, even though HTML and PDF are separately reported. We need more detailed data or research about user behavior patterns. Publisher needs to be more open about sharing usage data with libraries. And recently, Elsevier published an article discussing user behavior around PDF and HTML format. The study reveals that most users prefer PDF because it's better for the reading and archiving purposes, and HTML format is good for discovery purpose. But right now, publishers actually they start to build a lot of new technologies around HTML articles, which might present a lot of opportunities for users in the future. For example, the interactive searching and linked data set and linked videos that is built based on the HTML format. So that could be a preferred format in the future too. And another issue around usage is that usage can be deflated too. Counter statistics provided by publishers don't include the uses coming from the repositories like Archive, PubMed Central, and institutional repository. And recently, the final definitive version of Release 1 of PIRUS Code of Practice for recording and reporting usage at individual article level has now been published. It potentially can help us solve this problem in the future, but there are new services like Mendeley. They may also contribute to a lower usage at vendor platform, and that won't be addressed by PIRUS. New development, alternative metric is the study and the use of scholarly impact measures based on activity in online tools and environment, which are outside of traditional measures. The traditional measures usually like the things that are viewed, like HTML views and PDF downloads, and measure the things that are cited, like citations in scholarly literature. So the alternative metrics measure things that have been discussed in the journal comments, science blogs, Wikipedia, Twitter, Facebook, and other social media, and also measure things that are saved, like saved in Mendeley or Cite2Like, and other social bookmarks, and also things that are recommended, for example, used by F1000 Prime. The benefits of having alternative metric is that it provides more timely measures, and they also measure the impact outside of the academic, sometimes measure the impact outside the academic environment. But also, there are also issues with alternative metrics, like gaming issues. What behavior should be considered at cheating and how to correct those. Just people have the same concerns to ALMETRICS, the ones that they have to impact factors. And also, do the new metrics measure the popularity or prestige or simply the noise? And how to incorporate the new metrics with the traditional ones. Back to the work that we're doing here at CDL. So how should we improve our algorithm and solve some problems and incorporate some new developments? So this is what we have now. And this is what it might look like in the future. So we will look at the usage by maybe differently between PDF and HTML, and we'll incorporate a lot of alternative metrics. And also, we can assign different weights based on their relevancy. But this is just an example, and every single new step here needs more research. That's all I can see today, and I will turn it back to Michael. And thank you a lot. Hope you have enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you, Chan-Li. Lastly, we have Qinhua Shi, Information Scientist at AbbVie Library. In this role, Qinhua administers the integrated library system, manages their open URL link resolver, and troubleshoots their online resource access. She's also responsible for the development and regular reporting of metrics from various library systems. Previously, Qinhua was the electronic resource coordinator for the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, and Qinhua now holds an MILS from Syracuse University and a second master's in history from Zhejiang University, China.
Thank you, Michael, for introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Qinhua Xu. I work for AbbVie Library. It's my great pleasure to be here and talk to you about our experience with usage statistics. To give you some background of our organization, AbbVie is a global research-based biopharmaceutical company formed in 2013 following separation from Abbott. AbbVie currently has approximately 21,000 employees worldwide. AbbVie Library provides literature research, resource access, document delivery, training, copyright consultation, and so on to our internal clients globally. I'm a member of the Global Content Management team. Our team oversees the collection life cycle from content collection, development, budget planning to contract negotiation and content delivery. We do have a library catalog and open URL link resolver. We do look at what we spend every year and plan our content budget following company guidelines. Company guidelines are not based on industry trending. For example, Library Journal's price increase list published every April is always higher than the company guideline. All our purchases have to have a financial justification, mainly saying that a division or department needs a new resource is not enough. There has to be a resource trial if available and an ROI analysis either based on usage or on document delivery statistics. So how do we do our collection development? As you know, not all suppliers provide content-compliant reports or reports in identical formats. There were still content providers who were not able to provide any usage statistics. In those cases, the alternative was to use stats from the open URL link resolver or web page stats. In other words, usage stats analysis can be cumbersome as one is often dealing with too many sources, too many formats with too little time. We also look at ROI analysis, calculating cost per use for each of the contract. Our RLS acquisition module holds data for current and past purchases. When we create an ROI analysis, we combine the cost data in acquisition with downloaded usage data to create a cost per use report in a spreadsheet and add formulas, criteria, and decisions. Again, we have too many lists with too little time. We discovered the following pros and cons of our methodology. The pros were we were checking all the necessary data, and the ROI analysis showed compelling value of subscriptions versus pay-per-view. On the other hand, there were many cons, especially on the impact on workflow for both gathering usage data and determining ROI. To collect usage statistics, resources were divided among staff who manually downloaded usage report from different sources. We saw an increase in staff and time spent on data entry. Meanwhile, possible errors can occur because too many people were involved with too many lists. When creating ROI, since there were too much data, manipulating different formats to include acquisition records, downloaded usage data, adding formulas for project total year usage and cost per use and criteria, consolidating all into a single report was very challenging for us. We hadn't been able to create all contract reports at a title level. There also was no easy way to create ad hoc reports. Because of the need for transparent planning, purchases, and analysis in 2010, the library was tasked with 3 overlapping ROI projects. The first project was to do a cost per use evaluation of collection by subject portfolios conducted by management and subject matter specialists. Second project was to document purchase planning and decision-making processes. The third project was to perform ROI analysis of the journal e-book collection conducted by electronic resources librarians. All the projects were carried out in sync, and steps of the project did seem to overlap. Involvement of subject matter experts and management in the excessive detailed work of downloading usage data, consolidating lists, checking and triple-checking all the data paid off. At the time of the annual contract renewal discussion for our subscription, Swets selection support was demoed. The product seemed to provide information that aided title and collection development decisions. At the end of the year, we purchased the product. I joined the library in August 2011. I was then given a task to explore the functionalities of Swets selection support. So what does the product offer? For usage statistics, content-compliant usage report can be uploaded by Swets automatically. The screenshot on the left is an example list of platforms available for automated stats collection by Swets. Selection support also allows us manually uploading non-content reports, so everything will be in one place. The screenshot on the right hand is an example of local created ebook entry with its stats platform, where you can upload stats to the product manually. I can also add free text in a common field. For example, I will record usage measure, especially for ebook, so I know what number I use to calculate cost per use. For cost information, because we go through Swets for some of our journal subscriptions, so titles purchased through Swets will have the cost in the system. As to our own purchases, we use a template provided by Swets for the cost to be manually uploaded. You will receive email alerts which tells you if the work has been done properly. In addition to current purchases, we were able to upload prior 3 years so that we have a trending analysis at hand. In this example, if a title falls under one of the automated stats collection platform, the usage data will automatically show up. This is just a overview screenshot of different types of reports available within the product. In the next couple slides, I will show you example of cost per use report we use for collection development. Not only the reports can be run at a package level, title level cost per use reports can also be easily pulled from the product. Screenshot on the left is a cost per use report by package, in our case by contract. The screenshot on the right hand shows the individual title under a particular package, as well as price per use of each title. This report is particularly useful to us because we usually do not purchase journal bundles, and it's crucial for us to be able to view the title level cost per use. Another example is that we can now run a report to pull all our titles, including journals, ebooks, in a single file, then sort title by package. Document delivery cost is compared to subscription cost per use when we do the analysis. However, the implementation was not a simple click of the button. First of all, we had to upload holdings. Initially, we request holdings and cost information reports from content providers. We were considering stop maintaining information in acquisition module. After finding accuracy issues, that is, sometimes content providers do not keep good track of what they sold you and for how much. The reports were different from the invoices or our previous records. We decided to go back to updating our acquisition module. Because we usually do not purchase traditional packages, more often we pick customer title lists, both for journals and ebooks. For the purpose of easier management of data by contract, we had to create a package, that is contract level title list. While our acquisition module held data for both current and past journal purchases, the records for ebook purchase were not as up-to-date as those for journals, so we had to go back to create records in acquisition where we lacked records. At times, there was a delay with statistics availability, either from the content providers or the upload of reports into the product. The platform issue might be very specific to us. As I mentioned earlier, our titles are very unique to each platform. Therefore, we expect to see a one-on-one relationship between usage, data, and cost. For example, we purchase title from publisher A and would expect only see the usage stats from publisher A. However, for some reason, when the usage is automatically uploaded by Swets, it may show usage from multiple platforms. For institutions which offer access to the same title through multiple platforms, it's a nice feature that you could compare the usage across different platforms. However, that's not the case for us. By far, I haven't found a way to handle this issue within the product, and I hope in the future this will be solved in the future development. We have been using Swets-wide selection for over 2 years now, and it has made positive difference to our processes. Our records purchased in statistics for ebooks and journals are in one spot. We are looking into adding database as well. It provides efficiency in staff time spent on usage statistic retrieval. Transparency that we are tasked with our management is there. Reporting functionality is available for more than just ROI and usage statistics. Reports are in a one-stop shop environment, one format, easily downloadable. Anyone, not just content management team staff, can be trained to create reports. Further, rather than creating contract reports, we can now create a report on a title level and truly have a collection development analysis in a single file. In addition, Excel allows more functionality for our finance-driven environment. We use the product pretty heavily during the most recent budget planning. Our senior management has always asked for ROI on library spending. They were very impressed by the fact that we prepared the cost analysis at title-by-title level. Our lesson learned will sound like other project lessons. First of all, identify all elements you need for your collection development, content budget, and ROI analysis. Second of all, add time for investigating product on the market. Thirdly, implementing Swets selection support took time and effort. Staff had to learn a new product and adjust it to new processes. At times, we had to switch gears midway through the process and rethink what we have done. Last but not least, in addition, we had to keep a close eye on accuracy of data, statistics availability, and work close with SWET's technical experts to resolve any issues and suggest improvement. We hope that our experience will be helpful to your library, regardless of the setting. And we do have an ongoing subscription with the product and look forward to future enhancements. And meanwhile, we are open to learn about other methods library use to measure ROI. I was taking notes while as Charlie and Chan spoke, and we definitely take them back to my managers. So this is my end of my presentation, and I'm going to turn it back to Michael.
Hi, thank you, Qinhua. And actually, thank you to all the presenters who shared information today. Now we'll take a few moments for questions. Unfortunately, we won't have time to answer all of those questions during this webinar. However, answers will be provided via email as soon as possible. So let's see here. I'll pull up some of the questions that we have. Okay, so one of the first questions, I believe, was for Charlie, and it was from Lisa. She says, sorry, what is SACS?
Okay, yeah, I saw that pop up in the window. I'm sorry, I assumed everybody knows what SACS is, but that's the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. That's the Southeast affiliate of four-year university accreditation.
Okay, and then it looks like the next question could be for Chan. It says, where are the metrics located that you just mentioned, and are they readily available? So I believe it was referring back to the utility, quality, and cost effectiveness.
Yes, for usage data, you can get it from publishers, and we have Scholarly Stat Service, which collect usage data for us. And for the ones that they don't collect, you can also go to the publisher platform. And for the citations data, we got the data from Thomson Reuters database. So it has some limitations because it's only limited to the journals that index in their Web of Knowledge database. For impact factor, we subscribe to Journal Citation Report, where you can get that data from, and also another quality metric, SNEEP, that is freely available on Elsevier's Journal Metric platform, where you can download the whole spreadsheet. Yes, that's all, I think. And then you can do the calculation. Well, for the cost information, we have our acquisition department to store that data for us. So then you can do the calculation for cost per use and cost per SNEEP.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one other question was, do any of the panelists use the newish usage factor? So is anybody familiar with usage factor?
I think, this is Chen, I don't think it's available from the publishers now, so I don't think they provide that data. Or maybe some publishers, I'm not sure, but I don't think a lot of publishers have already started providing that data.
I've sort of heard of it, but it's not anything that really factors into any of my decisions as a collections acquisitions person.
Okay, another question is from Heidi. She said she was curious to know if Chanley has published or plans to publish an article about the weighted ranking algorithm.
Yeah, I saw a few people have asked that too. My colleague at CDL, we're working on publishing the article, and before we publish, we want to have some expert review on the calculations that we did. We want to collect some feedback before we publish the article, but we're in the process of publishing one.
Mm-hmm. Question from Ian. It says, hi, Chen. Is the cost savings by understanding the metric outweigh the cost of these products that can help calculate metrics?
Yes, I think it's definitely it provides a lot of ways to look at the journals now, because we have we licensed with more than 30 publishers, and in our database it has 7,600 journals. And because of the algorithm, we're able to assign values. We can look at individual publishers. We can effectively negotiate with publishers based on the value. And also, if we want to do any title selections, we can easily do that now because individual title are assigned with a value. So, before when people look at it, they have to review the journal titles, they have to review a lot of data, and they have to review a lot of journals. But now we can focus, maybe we can just let people to focus on the lower value titles now instead of reviewing the whole list. So I think there are a lot of benefits to it.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's just one thing that I can kind of chime in with that as well is, the soft savings of also having a tool that consolidates the usage figures for you. So for example, if you're going out and collecting, say, 30 or 60 platforms, and there's, JR1, JR3, DB1, the book reports, there's about, 8 reports. So you're looking at, with 30 platforms times the 8 or so reports, 24 or 240 reports there alone that you would then have to consolidate in Excel. So it can be very time consuming in that regard as well. Another question that we have, it says, is CDL looking at any citation metrics specific to their institution rather than global?
Citation metrics? Well, we're looking at how many articles are cited by UC users. That's one thing it's local, but other than that, we're also looking at how many articles are published by UC authors, which are not used in the algorithm, but we always often to look at that data too when we evaluate the journals.
From Marta, she says, we have multiple journal packages. How can we know individual journal title price?
Well, I think it depends on the cost model that you have. And for a lot of journals packages we have, they're really based on the historical print subscriptions. So we're able to assign the cost to individual title. However, there are also packages where we don't have that level of pricing. We only have a package level cost. So that seems becomes a problem sometimes. And one solution we did is we look at the list price for the titles in the package, and we calculate their list price percentage, and then we apply the total cost we pay with that vendor with that percentage. So in a way that it's related to our cost, and also it reflects their pricing, the pricing that publisher published.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I can also chime in a little bit on as well. The way that we currently do it in selection support is for packages. When there's multiple titles within that package, we would typically take the subscription price and then divide it evenly amongst the member titles that way, so it would add back up to the full price of the subscription. But a lot of customers, and especially recently at the Charleston conference, people are very curious to know the list price of the titles if they were to, say, for example, break that package. How much would it be if they were to pursue individual journal subscriptions, or maybe with some of the long tail to do ILL or DocDel or something? So I think that was a very good question. Let's see. It looks like we have another one from Gregory, and it says, can the panelists comment whether it was free versus paid content? So I'm not sure on the particular context of that question. But whether or not it was free versus paid content. So I guess, was there any differentiation that was made when you were evaluating your maybe your collection development or your weight algorithms, whether or not that content was maybe free with print, you have the electronic free with print or anything like that?
We're only evaluating the journals that we paid, so any OA titles are excluded. And I think that question is related to the Counter 4 report, which now include the usage data for the free content now. I think it's first of all, we don't evaluate a value for the free content, and the second, it's hard to tell whether those uses are, because I think if it's free, you don't need set up the IP address to get access to it. So I think you only capture partial data for the free content.
Mm-hmm. And a question to Charlie from Julie. She was asking, Charlie, what are you using instead of spreadsheets? I remember that one statement that you made earlier.
Well, yeah, I was using, I had about 50 spreadsheets on my computer. Now, when I go to selection support, I've got, when I download the data, it comes on a spreadsheet, but I don't have to worry about saving it. If I need that information again, I can go get it, or I can filter it and save it certain ways. I can manipulate the data. So that's actually what I was trying to allude to. Instead of having 50, I basically just have it down to 1, and if I lose it or if I don't save it, I can always go back into selection support and get that data. That's actually the point I was trying to make. I'm sorry if that was confusing.
From Jennifer, I think this one also is for you, Charlie. It says, for reporting stats, is it ACRL or ARL reporting?
We report to ACRL. We're not an ARL, so I don't know what kind of reporting goes on at that level. But I think just about every academic library is at least offered the chance to give data to ACRL for reporting, different types of things, and you can start running comparisons against, peer institutions. They have a service that you can actually get. I think it's called ALTMETRICS, and that's something that we started doing, I guess, a few years ago. I don't think it was something that we were doing 5 years ago, but in the 5 years that I've been here, we've decided to take that step to do a lot more peer comparison reporting, and so that's something that we take pretty seriously now, as well as the NCES, which is the National Continuing Education Service, or something along those lines. Those are really the two big reporting agencies when it comes to four-year academic reporting.
Okay, and thank you, Charlie. It looks like we're coming up on time here, so one last question, and it's to Chanley. And the question was if you could give a little bit more information to touch back on what exactly went into some of your metrics. So again, it was the utility and the quality. So if you could say what were those two boxes that went into that, somebody wanted a quick recap.
So like for utility, we have usage data, which is the full text downloads, and also we have citation data, which is the number of articles cited by our authors, UC authors. And for quality, we have impact factor, and we also have another metric called source normalized impact per paper. And for the two cost efficiency metric, one is cost per use and the other is cost per SNP.
Great, thank you. All right, so again, we will follow up by email for the individuals who were not able to be answered during this webinar. If you enjoyed this webcast, please be sure to check Library Journal's upcoming webcast for discussion on implementing change, realizing the results of collaboration in the cloud. Visit www.libraryjournal.com/webcasts for more information. And thank you everyone again for attending today's webcast. This webcast will be archived in approximately 1 week, after which time an email will be sent informing you when it is available. If you found this webcast informative or you wish to find other webcasts and forthcoming webcasts, please go to www.libraryjournal.com/webcasts. Additionally, if you have any questions about today's presentation or would like additional information, SWETS will also reach out via email. Again, thank you for your time and attention. Have a great day.